And let's just be clear here. A lens like this, which has such fast apertures, but is also a zoom lens, and it's also a wide zoom to a telephoto, all in one package. This is a super versatile lens. There's the city, and there's the chair in focus. We'll go up to 3200 ISO, so you can make out this park bench that overlooks this view. But you can just see how that focus changes between the park bench and the city. Very smooth, very fast, and this is even at night time. There's the last of the setting sun. We're at 1/25 f2 ISO 3200. Back to ISO 1600. And there's some football on. Aussie rules at the MCG. Big lights. G'day everybody, how are you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today I am really excited for a first for this channel, and that is showing you a new lens. I think a really original lens, a really powerful and kind of all-rounder lens. This is the Tamron 35-150 f2. Let me say that again, f2. So at 35mm, you are getting f2, and then it goes out to 2.8. That's it, f2 to 2.8, 35-150 zoom for the Z mount. Now this lens has been available for the E mount for a year or two, and now it's arriving for the Z mount from Tamron, and here it is. I have to say a big thank you. I reached out to the local Tamron representative here in Australia and said, hey, let me take this thing for a test drive. And they said, absolutely, we will lend it to you for a little while. This is going to be the first look, and then there will be a follow-up video where we take it out into the field. And you know how I like my 1.2s and my 1.8s. Well, this is a zoom lens that starts at f2.0. Wow! Okay, and here is this Swiss Army knife of a lens for the Z mount. And let's start off with the weight of this lens. This lens is super well built, and I can feel it's made of good solid materials. I think we're starting there with a composite and here with a composite, but it is a zoom lens and it is an f2, which means there's a lot of glass in here. So you can't get away with it being just a featherweight. That's absolutely for sure. The Z version of this lens is 1,200 grams. And interestingly, the Sony version is 35 grams lighter. And that makes perfect sense because the Sony mount is deeper, and thus the lens here, the Sony lens, is actually a tiny bit shorter, and creating that extra distance means you need extra materials, which means it's ever so slightly, 35 grams, which is absolutely nothing, 35 grams heavier. But it feels great. It feels super well made. And we've got this awesome lens hood here. The front element looking fantastic. And of course, this is a telescoping lens. Now, I've said plenty about telescoping lenses in the past. I'll say a short version of it right here. From my perspective, telescoping lenses cannot be as sealed as non-telescoping lenses, and that's fine, because there are so many lenses across so many brands and they all do this sort of thing, and we just have to accept the fact that super fine-grained dust and moisture might have a slightly more chance of getting inside these lenses, as well as I suspect lenses are not quite as tough if you're in the extended position and your lens gets a knock. But besides that, this type of design is awesome. What are the pros? Well, what it does is it makes your lens smaller, shorter, and potentially lighter, because there's no housing that has to be built around here. We take that in the modern age. I can tell you this zooming mechanism is very firm. It is very well dampened. If you want to do a slow creep zoom, I think that is going to be absolutely possible. That feels really spectacular, really good, very nice build quality. And round here on the side, we do have this switch which locks the zoom, so there's no chance of accidental zoomage. Accidentally, it's out. So that is awesome to have. When it comes to other switching gear and buttons, we have 3 programmable buttons around here, a lot like we see in many other lenses. And in most cases, these buttons are actually the same button, as in they have the same single function. They're just in 3 different locations. And we have a custom switch here which has 3 different positions on it, and that allows us to customize different functions to those 3 locations. We also have a switch here which gives us manual focus and AF focus, pretty much something we see on almost every lens. And that's about it for switching gear. We do have a focus ring here on the front. I was just recently playing with the Sony f4 70-200 and its focus ring was super loose. It felt too loose. Again, this is dampened really well, really nicely, and has the right amount of feedback. It's interesting to me that 70-200 was so free-flowing, and it kind of says to me that maybe Sony don't really think people are going to use that focus ring very much. But this one, definitely. It's got definitely very firm. I like how that feels. So ultimately, what I'm getting from the build quality here is it feels very well built, and the dampening of both rings are very firm. The zoom ring being significantly firmer than the focus ring, probably something like 3 times firmer, but that makes sense if you want to do a slow creep like that. Really nice build quality. And I'm really looking forward to getting this out on the range of Z cameras. We'll take it out on the Z7, the Z6, and a Z8 or a Z9. That'll give us pretty much the range of cameras that you might be interested in using this on. All right, so the reason that I'm popping this lens onto the Z9 is to see how it feels. What's the weighting like? What's the balance like? What's the focus speed like? And the only way we can find out how it reacts to different cameras, well, it's to put it on them. And that's what we're doing right now. It feels good. Now it's interesting. This is very similar in size to the 24-70 2.8. And that's intriguing because it's a 24-70 2.8. And this is a 35-150 f2 to 2.8. Great work by Tamron delivering so much range and so much brightness, such large apertures in such a small package. All right, and there's the 35, and that is great, and it's really nicely stabilized. Straight away I can see that. And there's the 150. That's really interesting. It doesn't feel that different to a 200, I have to say, and that focus is very fast. It's a quite smooth transition through the apertures as we zoom. So I'll show you, I will call it out as we go. So 35 f2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.4, 2.5, 2.7, 2.8. So that is a really gentle change. Now this is handheld at 150mm on the Z8, just using the internal in-body image stabilization. I can hear the slightest amount of noise, but it would not trouble a video shoot or a stills shoot. I'm firing stills here in silent mode. Yep. Well, that's really awesome. I'm really excited by that lens. It feels great on the Z9, and I was just shooting yesterday. I did some corporate portraiture. The client needed a super fast turnaround, and I was shooting with the 50mm 1.2 and the 85mm 1.2. And this, to be honest, has a pretty similar sort of feel, weight and size. And I think weight-wise, there's only like a 50 gram or 80 gram difference between this lens and the 85 1.2. So it really is in the same ballpark, the same place. It's really hard not to be excited by how much potential this lens offers in such a small package. Alrighty, well here it is on the Z6 II. Absolutely fabulous camera. I just did a major shoot for a client, a spice client, where we were doing all of the photography of spice jars, spice packets for their website. It was a major undertaking. They wanted everything to look absolutely perfect and the same. And in the end, I chose from a pricing, picture quality, the fact that it could be tethered and still the battery could still be charged, so the camera can be on all day long. It never overheated when we were shooting 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And the Z6 II was an absolute champion. And the lens that we coupled with it was the 105 2.8 MCZ lens, which is currently shooting our camera 2 close-ups over there. Love this camera. It's such a great all-rounder. Its low light capabilities are magnificent. It shoots, I think it's something like 14 frames a second. And for a wedding photographer, this sort of combo, 24 megapixels, low light capabilities, and then you've got this f2 2.8 to 35 to 150. What a great mix. Let's take a look. Again, very fast. So that is super fast. It works really nicely on the Z6, feels fine. Balance and weighting is good. Speed is good. We'll just go over to video and stabilization's off. Let's turn that on. There we go. Oh, wow. 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 So the body, I think the body and the lens are working together, because that is super smooth. Very impressive. Handheld, 150 mils. We are shooting in 8K 10-bit H.265. It's freezing cold. There's just a little bit of footage. I promise you more from this extraordinary lens will be coming soon. 35mm, 1/25 f2 ISO 1600 handheld. Alrighty everybody, well I'm glad I've tested it on a Z6 and on the Z9 to see that no one is being shortchanged by this lens. It seems to work really well on the more affordable entry-level cameras and also the absolute top-of-the-range camera like the Z9. Not only is the functionality all there, but it feels great. And of course, ergonomics and handling are also part of this story. Let's talk a little bit about the spec. The lens also has a USB-C port for firmware upgrades in the future, so that's cool and useful as well. And there is some software that Tamron create. The Tamron Lens Utility, and some of the functionality includes A/B focus, focus presets, focus limiter, focus ring function setting, selecting autofocus or manual focus, assign function from the camera. Functions of the camera body can be assigned to the focus set button. And of course we can update the firmware also via the USB-C port. And we also have the potentiality to download for Windows or Mac. The Tamron Lens Utility is available for Windows and Mac OS, including M1 processors on Mac. It has an 82mm filter thread. Maximum aperture is 2 or 2.8. Minimum aperture is 16 or 22, depending on where you're zoomed. The angle of view is 63 degrees to 16 degrees. The minimum focus distance is 33 centimeters or 13 inches. Maximum magnification is 0.18 times. There are 9 rounded aperture blades. The lens is 1,200 grams and it is 158 millimeters or 6.2 inches long. The lens uses linear focus motors, which makes it super fast, super quiet, and super accurate. I really like this lens and I'm seriously considering getting one of them myself. I would like to say thank you again to Tamron's local distributor here in Australia for lending me this lens for review. All right, everybody, well, I'm going to put up a poll, and if you could vote in that poll, that would be awesome. Is the 35 to 150 Z mount version of this lens so exciting? This is the second Z mount lens from Tamron. Is this lens of interest to you? Yes or no? Please vote in the poll. I will put a link here in the Show More show notes. Be awesome to hear what you think about this lens also in the comments below. I'd love your thoughts. I do think this is a super interesting lens. Yes, it's not quite as wide as a 24, but 35 is pretty wide. 35 to 150, what an absolute Swiss Army knife of a lens. It just is such an all-rounder lens. And often with this type of glass, we compromise on apertures. But here with this lens, it is simply not the case. f2 to f2.8. That's it, through the range. This to me is a bit of a wow lens. Good on you, Tamron. Absolutely great work. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Please don't forget to vote in the poll. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. And if this is your first time here, I would love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right, bye for now, and happy photography.